What's going on, ProGuides family? It's your host Sergeant Frost, and today we have the patch 5.03 tier list. There was a big nerf to a very prominent agent in this patch, and that heavily affected the ranking of the other agents around them. So make sure to stick around to the end to see where your favorite agent landed. Also, make sure that if you want to land in the rank of your dreams before the act ends, to visit us at ProGuides.com, where our Immortal and Radiant level coaches are more than eager to help you out. The link is in the description if you're interested, and now let's hop right into this tier list. At the top of the S tier for patch 5.03, we have the super battle droid from Star Wars himself, KO. It's been a long journey, but KO is finally getting his day in the sun as the #1 pick on our agent tier list. It's pretty easy to understand why he's the top dog now as well. Suppression is one of the most valuable pieces of crowd control in the game right now, right behind flashes. Suppression allows you to ruin an enemy team's plans, and it breaks their tempo of control on the map. With other types of crowd control, you're able to work around. But when KO hits you with his knife, or if you're stuck in his ultimate zone, everything that makes your agent unique is removed. KO also has other tricks up his sleeve that makes him powerful, including one of the best flashes in the game and a molly that can even hit through walls. KO has gotten to the point where he's just too useful not to have in your games, which is why he's welcome in almost every single team comp at the moment. Since Chamber has vacated the #1 spot on our tier list, there's room for yet another initiator to be in the top 3 of our list. And the #2 spot this patch goes to Fade. The main reason Fade has skyrocketed to the second pick is because she has become a better and more aggressive info gatherer than Sova in a lot of maps. Fade thrives on smaller maps where her prowlers and eye can clear space effectively. This means that on maps other than pretty much breeze only, Fade is the preferred info gatherer, and that is being reflected in her pick rate right now. Fade also has a plethora of crowd control that allows her to make plays both on attack and defense sides of the map, which allows her to contribute crucial CC to a team comp that's needed to win rounds. Overall, Fade currently has a very loaded kit, which makes her influence over a game quite high. Hence the reason why she's becoming a big player in the meta and why she is now in the S tier. It was only a matter of time, but after getting hit by the Riot Balance team's nerf hammer, Chamber has fallen a bit to the #3 spot on our tier list. Now hear us out. A lot of people will argue that Chamber should be ranked lower than S tier because all 4 were nerfed in some kind of way in this patch. But there are some good reasons for why that doesn't need to be the case. The main reason being is that his numbers on his abilities did get tweaked, and it is harder for him to abuse some parts of his kit now. But at the same time, the core of what makes him super powerful is still there, which is why him being able to take almost any angle on defender side and teleport out is just too OP. This just gives him so many options that in some ways it's hard to justify him being put lower than S unless that gets changed fundamentally. So he's still going to be low-key broken when a good player pilots him in game. Closing out the S tier, we have a new addition to the rank, and that's the DC Speedster Neon. Neon is up to S because her kit is already really strong on its own, as her overall speed and entry fragging abilities allow her to set up plays for her team and for herself. And her speed is hard for players to deal with even at higher ranks. Her stuns are very versatile, and her wall is very hard to deal with in a lot of situations where she can get her team to bull rush a site with little the defense can do to stop it. Neon is a very valuable duelist now that the community has a better idea of how to abuse her speed and the abilities in her kit to make both her attacker side and defender side play very differently. Kicking off the A tier for this patch is the vision blocking chemist Viper. So how's Viper faring so far this act? Well, she still has her maps that she's good on, which include Fracture, Breeze, Icebox, and even Pearl now if used correctly. But Viper's value diminishes greatly if she's not picked on any of those maps. She has good utility and a great set of tools, but she's not as necessary to a team as some of the agents have proven to be. Viper takes a lot of coordination to play well, and that doesn't bring a lot of value to a team in solo queue if you can't get everyone on board with the play she's trying to pull off. The other controllers who are much more self-sufficient fare better in solo queue because they rely less on your teammates to help get the job done. Oof, you do hate to see it, but Jet is down to the second spot in the A tier this patch. Jet fell down further this patch because Chamber is still alive in the meta despite his nerfs. Chamber also is still the better main AWP for his team because of his teleport safety and his OP ultimate, which does take away the main role of the AWP that Jet used to have. And on top of her losing her AWP role, Neon is rising in the meta as a super fast-paced entry fragging duelist that teams want on their team comp. Jet is falling in the meta because other agents are stealing her jobs because they can do the things she does but better. I mean, Reyes is even becoming a standard pick that can replace Jet as well on some maps. It looks like some of those past nerfs are starting to catch up to Jet because she is surely losing her edge in the meta. Sova is in this weird spot in the meta where he is still good and functions well for his role, but not many people are using him. The interesting thing is that this isn't even completely his fault either. The main thing plaguing him is that players are picking the other initiators over him in the current meta. Right now, skirmishing around the map and hard CC are the 2 most important things initiators can bring to a team comp. KO, Skye, Fade, and Breach bring 2 of those most important qualities to a team comp. Sova, on the other hand, is a more passive long-range info gatherer that uses his abilities to function on the map. It's not that Sova is bad right now, it's just that his kit is not as conducive to what the current initiator meta needs in the game at the moment. Reyes is slowly but steadily making her presence in the meta known. She is becoming a formidable duelist pick on smaller maps where her close quarters combat style can shine. What makes her very team comp friendly is that she synergizes well with agents that have a lot of CC in their kits. When you combine an Astra suck or a Fade snare with a Reyes nade or ultimate, you have a lot of potential multi-kills that can come very easy to Reyes. It's worth mentioning that Reyes does not have any sustainability in her kit like the other duelists do, which makes it hard for her to stay healthy throughout an entire round. But if she can do her job of getting in quickly and dealing massive damage even quicker, she is one of the scariest duelists to go up against in the current meta. A big play being made in the A tier this week is Phoenix jumping straight out of the B tier and into the mid A tier this week. If you're like me, you've seen tons of Phoenixes popping up in your game since his buffs a month ago. Phoenix is up to A tier because at the moment, Phoenix's flashes are basically undodgeable, and that's because they are near impossible to react to and therefore impossible to evade normally. That forces people to have to play anti-flash around the map as a gamble, and that playstyle is somewhat hard to play around, especially in the lower ranks. Phoenix is good for contesting most neutral zones, and he is great for executing into sites when his ultimate is up. And that's just a few of the main reasons why he's moved up to A tier. Closing out the A tier is the most team-friendly smoke agent in the game right now, and that is Omen. His changes earlier this year brought him back into the meta, and he's been holding his own ever since. He's not the default go-to controller pick for every map, but he is a good flex pick for a player that needs to fill Smoke's role, and they aren't specialized on a specific controller. Omen is a simple and easy to pilot agent, which makes him very friendly to newcomers and very powerful for veterans to use alike. He also has some dueling capabilities because of his flash and the mobility he has with his ultimate and shadow step. Going to the top of the B tier this patch is Killjoy. KJ's taken the top spot in the B tier, mainly because Chamber is no longer as oppressive as a pick as before, and therefore Killjoy has more room to see play in the meta. Her kit is still more or less the same, but now she faces less competition with Chamber in the meta. This allows her to come back as an above average pick for maps that she was previously good on, such as Ascent, Haven, and Bind for example. KJ now has the space she needs to be a meta pick again, so let's see if the community picks her up again in the near future. Yoru is a good duelist, but only in good hands. What we mean by that is that Yoru is starting to fall into the Cypher category, where he's not a good generalized pick for every single player. But when he's in a Yoru main's hands, he can cause complete chaos and destruction on the map and carry with ease. Yoru is not as good as the other duelists ranked above him in terms of general usability, but if you put the time and effort in to learn him, he can personally become an S tier duelist after some mastering of his kit. Brimstone is holding his own at the moment as a controller. Losing a stim beacon immediately after getting it buffed does suck as it takes some of his team utility away, but he does make up for it in other areas. He's a great attacking controller because his kit is very execute heavy, and his long-lasting smokes buy his team a lot of time, which is something no other controller can boast at the moment. If you need to fill smokes and need a simple agent to run, Brim is always the best option. Skye is usable, but not the best option in the initiator class right now. Skirmishing and hard CC is in for the initiators in the meta, but Skye does fall behind KO and Fade in that regard. She is very serviceable for her team because of her AoE healing, scouting, and pliable flashes, but she's more of a jack of all trades than a master of none. A good Skye player can take over a game, but the main argument is, why would you spend all this time mastering Skye when you could simply put less time in on KO or Fade and get the same results or better faster? A new player coming into the B tier this patch is Astra. Astra is not moving up because of a buff that happened to her. It's more of a new strategy on Pearl that allows her to provide value to a team. Astra is up to B tier because she is more meta on Pearl than the other smoke agents, and she's also starting to be an extra Sentinel presence in the game apart from Chamber, who typically lacks a real strong Sentinel sight denial presence on a team comp. Outside of these specific circumstances, Astra is still not a great pick for solo queue. Breach is in a spot where he's only used when absolutely needed, and that's on certain maps like Fracture or Haven for example. This is mainly due to the fact that his kit is more inclined to do well on certain types of maps than others, which is why he is seen on a lot of maps like Fracture, Haven, and even Pearl, and why he's non-existent on maps like Breeze, Icebox, and Bind. Breach is a liability to his team because all of his abilities can negatively affect his teammates, which puts him at risk of throwing a round, which is why he is not great for solo queue in his current state. Sage is being demoted to C tier for the time being. She's going down to C because she's proven to be a subpar pick for a lot of maps. She isn't as strong from a general perspective, and her heal is somehow outclassed by an initiator. She's still great for a map like Icebox, but her uses are limited, and also Split is gone too, which was a map she was decent on. Sage is great for low elo solo queue where her healing and revive can literally save matches at the right moment. But outside of those low elo games, she contributes little to a team's efforts to take map control and win. Cypher needs changes or buffs if he wants to be viable again. KJ is getting some love now that Chamber nerfs have opened up a spot for her to become meta again on some maps. But Cypher needs a little more than some Chamber nerfs for him to become a meta pick again. Cypher does not have the overall usefulness that Chamber, KJ, or Sage has as a Sentinel. If you need a sight denial agent, you are much better off with the other three over him unless you are already a Cypher main. Reina needs the Phoenix treatment right now if she wants to ever be a meta pick again. She is flat out bad compared to the other duelists right now. In the current state of Valorant, an agent needs to contribute something to the team outside of an "I can get kills easy" in order to be a useful member to the team. Reina needs a structural change to her kit and not some sort of numbers tweaking like Reyes historically does if she ever wants to come back full force as a major player in the meta. And with that being said, that's our 5.03 patch tier list. Let us know whether you agree or disagree in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like and consider subscribing. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and good luck on the grind this act.